I think I have a problem. With both Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring, I hated them both at first and nearly gave up on playing them, but if you look at the history of my channel, I have clearly come to change my mind about both of those games. So when Crimson Desert released and I played it and hated it within 15 minutes, I realized, uh-oh, I'm probably gonna love this game if I keep playing it. So that's exactly what I did. Folks at home, I would like you to join me on my journey through Crimson Desert. I'm gonna talk about what I did, what I liked, what I didn't, and how I eventually came to love this stupid game. There are plenty of spoilers ahead, so if you want to go into this game blind, then you should come back another time. And of course, before I get into this whole thing, I would love if you liked the video and left a comment. It turns out comments are incredibly important in the current YouTube algorithm, so if you have played Crimson Desert, just tell me one thing in the comments that you really enjoyed about the game, and one thing that you maybe weren't so thrilled about. Alright, we've got 100 days to get through, so I won't waste any more of your time. Let's get started. So, right off the bat, I'd like to note that it took me a couple of recording sessions to get my graphics settings just right, so if you see the graphics change a little bit at first, that's why. As for the game itself, things start with kind of a cold open. We play as a man named Cliff, and his group, let's just say, are having a bad day. We don't have the full context quite yet, but it doesn't take long for things to get worse than they already clearly were. Now, at first, I thought the fighting felt kinda strange. I'm so used to Souls combat and their lock-on styles that it took some time for me to get used to Crimson Desert's combat. Not that it's bad, it's a little different than what I'm used to. But your mettle is really tested a minute later when you are pitted up against Muradin. Not just him though, he and his friends pretty ruthlessly jump you, and I'm not sure if it's actually possible to win this fight, but I absolutely did not. Another cutscene begins and things look really bad. Cliff is tossed into the sea and should by all means be super dead. But he's not. We wake up in a place called the Abyss, or more specifically, the Corridor of the Void. This place serves as a sort of tutorial. Crimson Desert as a whole feels sort of like a mix of Breath of the Wild and Red Dead 2, at least in terms of the mechanics. And those are two pretty damn good games, so that's high praise. Just as soon as I came to this place though, we were now transported back to the normal world where we learned that Cliff was fished out of the river. How did Cliff survive that? And why doesn't he seem like any worse for the wear? Well, maybe we'll find out later. Probably not. For now, we get to witness just a little bit of who this Cliff character actually is, when these thugs start beating on the guy who saved our lives. Cliff doesn't take long to spring into action, showing us that he's a good dude. We'll talk a lot more about Cliff himself later, but for now, we are hopping on a horse and heading to a place called Hernan. Now, real quick, something you may have noticed by now is this little counter on the bottom left of the screen that tells us what day it is. Yeah, it's already day 3, but keep in mind that every minute in Crimson Desert's world is 5 seconds of our real time, meaning a whole in-game day would be 2 hours of our time, and with 100 days ahead of us, even if we spent half of the time just skipping ahead, we'd still have 100 hours to play. Now, the first thing we need to do is, wait, do you guys hear that? Whoa, is that a remarkably accurate MiG-29M fighter jet? And is it getting kind of close to... cut to the ad. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. In War Thunder, you can take control of over 2,500 different vehicles, including the biplanes and armored cars of old, to the fighter jets and tanks of the modern day. The War Thunder experience is truly one of a kind thanks not only to the realistic graphics, but also the authentic sound effects. You can give War Thunder a shot yourself for free on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, or on the new mobile version, making the game more accessible than ever. In each version, you can enjoy playing around with War Thunder's in-depth customization system, trying out different types of camouflage, historical markings, and decorations for all types of vehicles. If you click the link in the description of this video or in the pinned comment, then you can claim a massive bonus pack that is available on PC or consoles for new players or players that haven't played in the last 6 months. This bonus pack is available for a limited time, and it comes with the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. If you're a fan of military history, then there's no better gaming experience out there for you. Come join the over 95 million other players in this worldwide community by, again, clicking the link in the description or in the pinned comment and trying out War Thunder for yourself today. Thank you to War Thunder for supporting the channel. Now back to the video. Now, while I can't cover every little thing I did in the game, I'll try to make sure I hit all the important things. Basically, the very first thing I did was just walk into this building and learn that you can open a fucking bank account. Maybe that's a silly thing to be excited about, but it just seems like such a random mechanic to be in the game, and I was very excited about it. Next, I just spent a little time exploring the city. That eventually led me to the tavern where I partook in a little arm wrestling. I am a MASH god, so this was easy money, but there's mini games like this scattered across the game, which I really like. When I was done wrestling, I went back into town and gave this guy a coin. He gave me a key in return and then sparkled away. This started a chain of me doing something for someone and then them sparkling into nothing. After doing a few more chores, learning how to cook, how to chop trees, and how to mine stuff, I took a good hard look at the skill trees. There is a fucking lot of stuff that you can do in this game. Frankly, at some point, it becomes a little too difficult to remember all the different things Cliff is capable of doing, but maybe that's just because I'm old. I don't know. Still though, seeing all this stuff got me really excited, and I couldn't wait to start leveling up. And I guess that process starts with another trip to the Abyss. Before we really do anything here, we are given a new power by a mysteriously familiar sounding white bird. This is the Axiom Force, and yes, I mentioned this already, but it is very Breath of the Wild feeling, which is fine, no complaint there. After a short puzzle, I am introduced to Alustin. He is, I don't know. I still don't know who this guy is, to be completely honest with you. He's some sort of mystical being, but he keeps things pretty vague. What he tells us, though, is that there are people bringing chaos and disorder to the world, and that it's kind of up to us to do something about it. And that's all we get for now. Honestly, that's kind of all we get for the rest of the game, now that I think about it, but whatever. But here we are with that bird again, and holy shit, that bird is a woman. And wow, she really sounds familiar.
I am White Crow.
Oh my god, it's Lae'zel. When I learned that, I was blown away. Although, in very Lae'zel fashion, she basically told me to throw myself off of this thing. Well, she said it much nicer than that, and also gave me these cool-ass wings, which I can use to get around, similar to Link's glider, but with even better mobility when you upgrade them. When you jump from the abyss, you fall back to the overworld, and Lae'zel tells you that the world is yours to explore. This ends Chapter 1, and Chapter 2 begins with a new task. On the way there, I used these bandits to practice my combat a little bit, writing in my notes, it's gonna take me a bit to get good at this game. But oh my god, look at that clothesline ability. That is fucking amazing. And you can just pick people up and throw them. I fear they may have made this game specifically for me. I got to test my combat once again when I reached this watchtower, and I did a solid job taking all the bandits out. Inside the tower, I found a helmet that lets me see memories, I guess. I don't know. It's probably best not to overthink it. Wait, that voice.
I'm not actually there.
Is that Astarion? It sure is. That's crazy. I did not know any of these people were in this game. Now, something I'm not totally sure still how I feel about is the looting system. This was the first time I had like a shit ton of stuff to loot, and it was kind of a pain, but it's also kind of satisfying being able to see something and then pick up that specific something. After that, I ran into a magical child and her magical cat. I tried my hand at this little archery mini game and crushed it, and then I rang Hernan's bell, which cleared up a large section of the fog on my map. After ringing the bell and landing back in the city, I was confronted by a group of guys who really sounded like they wanted their asses beat. One of them in particular, Matthias, was clearly their Regina George, and goddamn, his armor looks cool. I'm a big fan of these medieval helmets. Frankly, I don't even care if they're functional in real life or not. I just like how they look. We had a little duel, which wasn't all too difficult, but after the first phase, I learned a new ability, the pump kick. It is pretty fucking cool, and I like that you can just learn abilities by watching people do them. After besting him in battle, the first thing I did was go get his helmet, which I will be rocking for quite a while. For a good stretch of time after getting my new look, I went around being everyone's errand boy. This isn't a problem exclusive to Crimson Desert. In fact, there are very few games that have solved this problem in any sort of creative or effective way. But sometimes in video games, it just feels like everyone except for the player is utterly useless. And the point of a video game is to make the player have a good time, and to have a good time, you probably need to feel useful. But I would just love if games stopped making it seem like like every other character is incapable of wiping their own ass without us. Back to enjoying myself though, I eventually came to confront a guy deemed the Horn Splitter. Now, while Matthias was also technically a boss, and Myrden was before him even, this guy felt like he was actually the first boss. Our battle was close to finishing when he killed me, but that's when I discovered what the Palmer pills do, giving me another lease on life, and I finished him off. Well, actually the little goblin guys did the finishing for me, but I won the fight. As I go through this video, I'm gonna share a handful of tips that I learned the hard way, and one of them is don't sell weapons that have abyss gears on them. I didn't realize this at the time, but the sword I received from the Horn Splitter has a special ability on it that can be removed and replaced on a different weapon. The game tried to warn me about this, but I either just didn't read it or forgot immediately, and I sold the sword later on, forever losing that abyss gear. Back to the story, I was led to a cave where I found Sylvia the Witch. I love the witches. For some reason in a game with no romance possible, they made all the women, and plenty of the men to be fair, extremely attractive. The witches are the ones that let you mess around with the abyss gears on your equipment, and they've got a storyline of their own that I will work on later. As for the main story, things got exciting when I found Marius, a fellow Greymane. Marius leads us to meet with a man who I think is in charge of Hernand or something, and because of the good I've done around the region, he sets us up with a new camp location. The place is called Howling Hill, which is a cool-ass name, and it comes with a new playable character, Damien. No, it's not Damien. It's just Damien, but it looks like it says Damien. She is her own entirely separate playable character with her own set of weapons and abilities, and that is really cool. Now, clearly, I was meant to work on the camp we just built, but I wanted to take the White Crow's advice and explore the world. I heard a kid in Hernand just randomly say that there was a scary creature to the north, so I pretty much just traveled that way and hoped that something cool would happen. On my little excursion, I slaughtered troves of bandits, but the mother load of them came from this quarry. I spent almost exactly an hour in this place, just straight up decimating the bandits, but it definitely wasn't enough to prepare me for the boss of this place, who I didn't even know was here. Frankly, this boss has some dumb bullshit attacks that just juggle you, and there's nothing you can really do about it, but other than that, it's just a more durable and aggressive boss than the others thus far. It took me plenty of patience and pill popping to get through it, but eventually I whittled its health down and got a fun weapon out of it. From doing all that murder, I made plenty of silver and contribution points, which I don't even worry about that. It's too much for me to explain. But I spent that all on some new armor. Even more excitingly though, I learned that you can dye your armor. Now yes, the process of finding the dyes and dyers only being able to dye one color is asinine and weird, but I was still really excited by this discovery. I did a little more exploring after that, mostly trying out some bounty hunting and solving a few puzzles, but I got back to work by going to the House of Healing. They are not very nice in that place, and they sure as hell didn't want me in there, but I found a fellow Greymane, Yan, and we got the hell out of there. As for Yan, I do not fuck with that guy. He is the kind of friend that we should all avoid. He's got a loud mouth, and he's frankly pretty fucking useless. Not to mention, any quest involving him also involves a stupid, boring, pointless horse ride where all he does is say stupid shit the whole time, but don't worry, I'll complain more about that specific issue later. The next big step of the main quest was to go out and take out this weird boss called the Crimson Nightmare. Cool name, but the boss itself, not so much. My problem with this boss is that I don't know, maybe I need glasses or something, but I didn't know what it was doing most of the time. Like, the model is just very hard to decipher. I did, of course, kill it, but I wasn't super happy about it. Jumping ahead a little bit more, I eventually came to this manor place where I found a guy dying, and he asked me to go track down the person who had hurt him. This mechanic was pretty cool at first. You just follow this little trail, but this specific section of the quest line stretches on for what feels like ages, and I died during part of it and had to run the whole path back. It was really annoying. But what it was leading to was this guy, the Devil of the Reed Field. Let's get back to throating this game, because something that really stood out to me in this cutscene was just how much I really like the choreography. Honestly, if the animators for this game worked on a movie, they could really make something fucking cool. I mean, not that it's not cool in the game, but like, imagine a full feature length of like people fighting and shit. I don't know. They did a damn good job. The boss fight itself wasn't bad. We traded blows quite a bit, and it definitely wasn't my best showing, but the Reed Devil doesn't hit quite as hard as maybe he should, and I was fine. He talked the whole time, though, about his sad backstory, and while he was doing that, all I could think of is like, man, I have no fucking idea who this guy is. That's probably my biggest issue with this game. Not just this guy, but pretty much every antagonist that appears is going to be a flash in the pan, underdeveloped or explored, or I've said this quite a few times now, but I'll come back to that idea when we get a bit deeper into the story. But for now, I was a little disappointed and mostly confused. After that battle, I went back to camp, and at the time, I wasn't really interested in the camp stuff. I even actually wrote in my notes, the camp stuff is cool, I guess, but not really for me. Yeah, that is not going to be the case for long. Starting the next quest, though, brought us into Chapter 4, and to a place where I did some silly puzzle and got an item called the Cuckoo Pot. The Cuckoo Pot was not very well explained. Or, again, maybe I just didn't listen, and I don't know, I just kind of sidelined that stuff for now, but you just use it to hold on to items and you use them later. It's fine. For now, I did a little bit of the camp stuff. It was starting to warm up to me a little bit, mostly just mini games at first, but I returned to the main quest after a little time. Oh, but wait, 1 second. I learned that you can use the Axiom Force to grab onto trees, pull them towards you, and then let go, and the tree will send you flying. That is the kind of shit that gets me going. I love games with good movement and good, like, silly mechanics like that. I was smiling, like, I'm smiling right now like a little fucking kid. I love that. Anywho, I was headed to school for the next step, and while I didn't really know what I was there for, I ended up helping a guy create a portal to the abyss, and I think anyone with any iota of sense could tell that that was a bad idea, and when things started going wrong and the guy who had this stupid fucking idea was vaporized, I can't say I felt all too bad. The abyss, have we learned nothing from Dark Souls? I managed to tame the black hole that he had opened, but it was clear that I needed to head to this place next, the Spire of the Stars. At the top of the spire, I entered the abyss once again and found the guy who got Thanos snapped still alive in there. Although he was old now, so I guess, I don't know, does time pass differently here? It doesn't really seem to. He told me to stop him, but obviously I had no fucking clue who he was referring to. And when I went a little deeper into this place and this guy appeared, I was actually a little excited. Man, does this game have a real antagonist? That would be great, wouldn't it? Well, I guess we'll find out later, because he just pushed me off the place, and now I'm falling from the sky, and that was it for that mission. Cool. Cliff got a little R&R, and we were already into Chapter 5. This one started with Cliff being invited to some kind of banquet. It took me a little bit to get there, but in my notes while the cutscene was playing out, I wrote, I want to fight bosses. I'm tired of being a sweetheart errand boy. I crave blood. And as I watched the cutscene continue to play out, my follow-up note was simply, what have I done? Yeah, man, not totally sure why they thought bringing this big fucker to something like this was a good idea, but clearly they were wrong. It broke free, and as always, it was up to me to stop it. I got a little frustrated with this fight at first, but that was completely a skill issue. I kept trying to parry it like it was a normal-sized boss, but it turns out you can't parry everything in this game, and so then once I realized that, I had to start using the rolling and the dodging a little bit better. Now, while this plays out, I'd just like to mention how I think that the healing mechanic in this game is kinda silly. You can basically just heal whenever you want, and you do so indefinitely if you have the supplies. You just press a button, Cliff instantly eats the food, no animation, no nothing. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a combo, in the middle of getting beat up, or anything else in between. It's kinda odd, but it does work for this game, considering there's a lot of bosses that just toss you around like a fucking ragdoll, like this guy did to me a lot. So being able to constantly heal through it is one way of dealing with it. It was not quick, it was not easy, but after taking a beating, the monster ran off. Great, I'm sure I'll have to deal with that later too. For now, I met with Damien and she gave me some intel on the Black Bears. You know, the guys that jumped us and presumably murdered Cliff at the very start of the game. This is something I was pretty excited about. I mean, who wouldn't want their run back after how it ended earlier? And so I thought that's what we were doing next, but instead the game pranked me. Nope, instead I had to go into the abyss again, and this time I was jumped by these crow guys. I handled them all, but not before they got to Alustin. Between all the trickery and illusions thus far, I couldn't tell if this was real, but it was, I guess, and he told me that the white crow had been taken. I mean, okay, I was kind of excited about the black bear thing, but sure, I'll go save the crow lady. Well, if the game was gonna halt my story in its tracks, then I figured I'd return the favor. I took a massive break from the story at this point. The game just had so much to offer, and there was one thing specifically that had me excited. The dye. You know, the dye for your armor. I used Map Genie, not sponsored by the way, just shoutouts to them I guess, was pretty helpful, and just went through, and wherever they showed there was dye to be found, I got it. I did lots of exploring and such in between as well, finding all manner of weapons, armor, books, and plenty of other assorted bullshit, but honestly, this sort of thing was my favorite part of the game. I'll bring this up again later. I know that's like the 40th time I've said that, but this kind of thing, like giving yourself your own quests almost, like back in the day I did with Skyrim when I would go and get all the Dragon Priest masks or something like that. It's really fun to have things that you can go and do and make your own objectives. I like that a lot. By the time I returned to the main quest, I had leveled up a shit ton and I had a brand new look. Not to mention that I had started that little break from the morning of day 24 and it was now the morning of day 29. I was into the abyss once again and face to face with the Crow Caller, the guy who absconded with the White Crow. Like with the Reed Devil, this whole thing would have been much more compelling if I had any idea who this guy was, and you do get to learn a little bit more about him later, but like, dude, it wasn't until like hour 80 that I learned more about this guy, and by then I was so disconnected from the plotline and this guy specifically that I did not give a shit. I mean, Cliff kinda sums up the way this game makes me feel.
I have no interest in your story.
With Crow Boy defeated and the White Crow saved, I guess, we had finished yet another chapter of the game, and I hoped we were one step closer to doing something more interesting. And I guess we were. Chapter 6 was hectic off the bat. The pace had changed entirely. We were thrown into the middle of a veritable fucking war. There were cannons, there were artillery strikes, it was sick. And we were finally getting around to doing something with them black bears. We ended up meeting with Unka, maybe the only Greymane I remembered from the starting cutscene of the game, and in my notes I wrote that he sounded like Yurgir, and that's because, and I went back and looked, he is voiced by the same person who does Yurgir. Small world. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, the story lost me for a bit. I don't know how or why I ended up eventually getting to this guy, but you know, at least he looked cool. Too bad he ran into old Cliff. Now, Cliff is a hero, no doubt about that, but I actually kind of like that he does not hesitate to put a motherfucker down if he needs to. It's fun to see him have a little bit of character. But that's pretty much it for Chapter 6. As for Chapter 7, I started the quest line by heading to this new city, experienced this weird little dialogue minigame, which is painfully terrible, but it seems like we are gearing up to deal with the Black Bears proper. I guess the Black Bears had taken a town called Payloon, and it was up to us to take it back, and so we did lots of fighting in this place, and it all led up to a boss fight with another new boss who I again had no fucking context of. That being said though, the fight itself was insane. Insane in a good way. It was like very God of War-esque. Unfortunately, he ended up getting away, but we will worry about that later. Our fight with the Black Bears was far from over, but for now, I needed a break. Not from the game, just from the main quest. This break was another pretty long one, and the main focus this time was getting my camp set up. It turns out that the camp thing is actually really cool, and you can get all sorts of little shops and stuff in your camp if you upgrade it. Although, touching back on what I had said about Yan earlier, most of the quests just consist of you following somebody on horseback for a while really slowly, and then they just ditch you, and then you have to go somewhere else alone. And they could have just like not made you ride the horse with them. I don't know. I also did some of the witch quests, which also really sucked. You just clear out these sanctums over and over, and they're basically all the exact same. Some of them have these Antumbra bosses in them, and those guys will put some hair on your chest. I did plenty of other little stuff, but we are almost a dozen pages into this script, and by the end of this break, I was only at day 46. A whole 10-day break this time, but still not even halfway through the playthrough. So we'd better get back to the big stuff. When I came back to the main quest line, I had a huge battle ahead of me, but I was finally given a chance to get a little revenge on an old not-so-friend, Muradin. Yep, the guy who fucked up Cliff at the start of the game. He's got some new powers now, but frankly, I still kicked his ass. Between the amount of fight practice I've had in my breaks and the dope sword that I'm using, I may be a little stronger than I should be at this point, but I guess we'll have to finish things up with Muradin another time, because he tucked his tail and ran for the hills with some help from the lightning guy. Well, I hope next time I see him, he's a lot stronger. Now remember the Unka guy I mentioned before? Turns out he's actually a playable character, just like Cliff and Damien, and the main quest forces you to switch to him for a bit. I was a little nervous that he was gonna overstay his welcome, but I was pleasantly surprised that after doing battle with the old lightning boy again, for the last time, I got to switch back. That is the perfect way to have executed that. Very nice work. I stuck to the main quest for a little while after that, but then I got back to upgrading my camp. It would take a while to explain the whole camp thing in depth, but it's a part of the game that I liked a surprising amount. Something I disliked, though, is this Caliburn guy. It feels like they are playing him up to be the final boss, and that would be fine, except I know nothing about him. I don't know what his goals are, I don't know why he's here, I don't know where he came from, I have no connection to him like I do Mirrodin. I don't really understand what they're going for here. Well, I assume we'll meet with him again later, but for now, it's time for me to play as Damien. Her kit is really neat, and like with Unka, my time spent with her was perfectly brief. Now, looking at my notes, looking at the amount of days we have left until we hit day 100, and thinking of how to explain everything I did without this video being 2 hours long is proving to be a tricky puzzle. But I think I can sum it up for the most part without losing the spirit of it all. Typically, when I record gameplay for videos, I do so in like 1 to 3 hour chunks. Take little breaks, reset the recordings in case something gets messed up, make sure I'm not gonna die because I've spent too long without standing up. But day after day, and I'm talking real days, not in-game days, I constantly had 4 to 6 hour sessions, like multiple a day. The game just has so much stuff going on. I upgraded my camp about as far as you could without having beaten the game. I slaughtered boss after boss after boss. I ran into a few bosses who were still way beyond me, which was exciting, just something for me to do later. And I think this stretch from about day 54 to day 78 was one of my favorite gaming experiences probably ever. Again, so much you can do in this game, and I enjoyed the majority of it. As I snapped back to reality and realized I may be running out of time to finish the main story before day 100, I got back to work. For all of 5 seconds. I got through chapter 9, which was fine, I guess. Got to see a dragon, that was cool. But I had such a better time going out and choosing what to do on my own that I once again got distracted for another almost dozen in-game days. I didn't even know time was passing by, to be honest with you. I just was so lost in doing my own shit, and it was not passing by, it was flying by. I once again checked what day it was, and my eyes popped out of my head like a cartoon. I got back to the main stuff eventually, though, and to be honest, I really wish that I hadn't. Chapter 10 introduces a bunch of new characters and a bunch of sort of weird mech-related stuff, which is fine and cool, but the thing about this all is that it just wasn't worked into the, well, I was gonna say it wasn't worked into the story, but let's be honest, this game has no fucking story. we can just say that, right? There's no story here. I felt like they were really trying to cram all of this kind of stuff in here at the end of the game, and it does not work. Chapter 10 was mid, but chapter 11 was pure misery. There's 2 bosses in particular that are both horrible, awful, ungodly creations that I'm not even gonna waste my time talking about. And this Marnie guy, who is supposed to be like a really important character, who's voiced even by the ever so talented Neil Newbin, he is so nothing burger. The only good part about chapter 11 was facing off with this robot dragon. That was pretty awesome. And I was thrilled to see the dragon I made friends with earlier, who I just realized I kind of really skimmed over that, but yeah, we're homies. I was thrilled to see him come back and be on my side, but using him was underwhelming. Chapter 11 ends with a whimper, and chapter 12, the last chapter of the game by the way, was determined to outdo the previous ones in the Dookie department. The dragon combat should be one of the best parts of Crimson Desert, but other than the boss fights that I mentioned with those tank things earlier, this was the worst part of the game. Yes, worse than the clearing out the sanctums, and yes, worse than the Greymane horse rides. The dragon just feels weak and slow, and the fireballs hardly ever do what you want them to do, and the big weapons you're trying to destroy with the dragon are just melting the dragon's health the entire time, and if it dies, then you fail the mission. And I don't really know what else to say about it. I'm being so negative for it. It's not getting better. So let's skip ahead to the climax of the game. And don't worry, we didn't really skip anything important, because I eventually came face to face with Caliburn for what I assumed would be the final boss fight. And the fight itself was actually really fun. I enjoyed that. And while I didn't really care about what he was yapping about in the background, I guess he does an okay job of serving as your basic run-of-the-mill evil guy. Except he isn't really the final boss.
A different approach. A foolproof method.
Dude, when Mirrodin appeared, I genuinely busted out in laughter. Last time we faced off, his punk ass got destroyed and he ran away. Now suddenly he has some new powers and he thinks he can take me. Sure, man, why not? I was hoping he'd be the final boss anyways. The fight with Mirrodin was a lot harder than it needed to be. I had used most of my solid healing against Caliburn and I didn't have a single Palmer pill, so if I got clipped by an attack, it was most likely going to be fatal. But after sticking it out and conquering the Black Bear's leader, he transformed into one of those biblically accurate angels. No, man, I'm not kidding. Look, okay, I guess the point here is that Mirrodin gave himself to Umbra for power. Like, it's on some Majin Vegeta shit. And Umbra, this weird eyeball thing, is presumably the driving force behind a lot of the bad stuff that happens in this game, but none of that is talked about. All that I just said is my interpretation. Nothing gets explicitly explained. Mirrodin's twist is completely undermined, and if I was laughing before, I was shaking my damn head this time. Oh, but don't worry, this fight also has the dog shit dragon again, and he's a pretty key component of it. You have to dodge attacks and stuff and shoot fireballs that get blown away half the time. And hey, you want to jump off the dragon to hit the boss in its one obvious weak spot after you get its stamina down enough? Nah, you don't need to do that. Except you kind of fucking do. The controls for this section they literally do not work. The mechanics of the dragon and of flying and of climbing, all that stuff was just not designed to work with this boss. It feels horrible, it's a horrible ending, and it left me severely bummed out. We ended up winning, obviously, but when we jump ahead a little bit and Cliff has had a chance to recover, the epilogue begins and is equally silly and confusing. Unka and Cliff talk as if they're saying goodbye to each other forever, and then you just visit the locations you just helped throughout the game and have these conversations that are obviously supposed to be sentimental, but they aren't. I don't even remember these fucking people. And then that's it. Once you're done doing that, you are done with the main story and you're left to your own devices, and being left to your own devices is Crimson Desert at its best. I know I just took a steaming dump on the game for a bit, but don't let that last bit of the story speak for the whole game. Let me walk you through why Crimson Desert is awesome. It was past day 100 by this point, and I wanted to finish some side quests. There was one I didn't recognize, and apparently there was a village that had some bad thunderstorms or something, and the storms were destroying stuff, so they wanted my help. To control the storms, I had to do a surprisingly complicated but pretty cool puzzle, but after doing that, I had somehow summoned a fucking god. A literal god. It's in his name. The fight was kinda silly, but an all-around enjoyable experience. And that, dear viewer, is the impression that Crimson Desert should leave on you. A game where you can solve Legend of Zelda puzzles 1 minute and be fighting a god that you didn't know existed the next minute. My time in Crimson Desert was overall awesome, and so far into 2026, it's clearly the front runner for Game of the Year. I wish they had simplified the story, like, a lot. If they had just picked, like, one big bad guy and made him the main driving point of the game. If they had taken an Ocarina of Time approach with, like, their Ganondorf, right? They just needed a Ganondorf, really. That would have kind of fixed everything. But whatever. If you made it this far and suffered through my insane mumbling and grumbling, just know that I really appreciate you. Before we go, I want to remind you to check out War Thunder, available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and on mobile devices. It is a fantastic time to try out War Thunder because they've got that bonus pack for new players, or for players that haven't played in the last 6 months on PC or consoles, so make sure you click the links below to take full advantage of that. It gives you some premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. Thanks again to War Thunder for supporting the channel. If you are not subscribed, I mean, what are you even doing here this late into the video? Hit the damn button, please. And thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you liked and what you didn't about Crimson Desert, and shoutouts to the Pearl Abyss team for keeping the game constantly updated. They have been doing like weekly or bi-weekly updates at this point, and the game is in a significantly better state now than it was just a month ago. I cannot wait to see what they do to make it even better. Thanks again, guys. GG's, everybody.